All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today's lesson, we're going to look at how life was after World War One. Okay. Now, for you guys, I want to start off class by saying I'm sorry um, that I didn't have your guys any work really for you guys um, last class. Um, I'm in here in Stanford now, and I've been going through a lot the past couple of weeks. So I do apologize. I wanted to have this lesson, this exact lesson for you guys, but I was just feeling horrible. I was having, you know, little surgery things done and the scans and things like that. So I do apologize. Also, and I started my radiation. So yeah, I do apologize for that, guys. But since we're here, let's get it started. Okay. Life after World War One. So we're going to analyze the significance of dismantling Austria Hungary and Germany. You're going to see a map I'm going to show you of how uh, the world looked like in Europe when World War One started and afterwards, with all the treaties and negotiations and things like that. Then we're going to examine the significance of Germany's money basically being worthless. How did that affect not only the country, but surrounding countries in Europe? And then we're going to create an argument on whether the Dawes plan was going to work or not. And you're going to find out what that was in a second. All right, so here's your warm up picture. Now, if you look on the chest, it says Germany, right? That's who the guy represents. So this illustration is from the perspectives of the Germans, okay? So what do you think this artist is trying to say how the treaty negotiations are going in the perspective of the Germans? How do they see the treaties going? When they're making the deals and making the final agreements to have peace finally. You know, how does it look like the Germans are feeling? Okay, so look at the wording around that should really help you and look at what's happening. Okay, so pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, US President Woodrow Wilson he knew that when World War One was going to end, that the peaceful settlements would be unfair to some countries, especially those on the losing side, and that he felt, this is going to cause some tension amongst the countries in Europe. So that's why he wanted to form the League of Nations. Okay, uh, and this would help kind of avoid future wars because it was seen as like, hey, if you attack one of these countries, you attack all of them. Okay. Now, a lot of European countries really like this League of Nations idea. Um, but the thing is, the Americans didn't. And as you see from this picture you see to the side, that's how a lot of Americans saw the League of Nations. That if something happened in England, Japan, Russia, any parts of Europe, or any other nations in Europe, excuse me, that our hands would be bound, that we're making an agreement to join a fight that's not our fight. You know, a lot of Americans saw it as like, hey, all that stuff happening in Europe, let them deal with it. That has nothing to do with us. But if we sign this League of Nations deal, we're obligated. We have to help them out. So we're getting involved in something that has nothing to do with us. So that's why a lot of Americans didn't like it. They told their senators and their congressmen, do not vote for it. So the US Senate did not approve the Treaty of Versailles. Okay. So we didn't sign the treaty. Okay. Now, again, some people are like, well, if the president says so, isn't that all that matters? No. Because again, the president is powerful. Yes. But there's a thing called checks and balances. There's certain things that the president can and cannot do. There's certain things that Congress does that they have power over the president. And this is one of the things. Yes, the president can make a treaty. They can make peace with Mexico, Germany, Russia, whoever. But Congress has to approve the treaty. They have to see the paperwork, read over it, and say, yes, we agree with this or no. A lot of times, the Senate will agree with it, but in this case, they said no. Now, because US was one of the countries that didn't sign it, the league still formed, but they were pretty weak. So they decided, you know what? When there's future conflicts, we won't use aggression. We won't use force. So if a country invades another country, we'll find another way to settle the issue instead of using the army, using war, because hey, we're done with war. War should be over with around the world. And this is going to be another reason for World War II. All right, so if you look at this map, on the left side, you see in the kind of pinkish color, you'll see Germany, Austria, Hungary, you know, and if you look on the picture to the right, you see more countries in those because those countries were created because of the Treaty of Versailles. So countries like Czechoslovakia, Poland, Austria, Austria and Hungary became two countries again. Yugoslavia, Romania gained territory. Ukraine, Moldavia, East Prussia, Latvia, Estonia. If you look on the right to the left, you'll see more countries. Because again, Germany and Austria Hungary, they lost the war, so now they had to break up their countries. They had to lose territories. And with that, new countries were created. Okay. Now, here's the thing. If you remember from previous lessons, I told you how France really didn't like Germany. And when the war was over, France really wanted to give it to Germany. Well, this is the thing. This is what they did. This is what they did. They demanded strict enforcements on the Treaty of Versailles, especially the reparations part. Reparations is another way of saying repayment. So they basically said, we want Germany to acknowledge that they caused the war, that they're the reasons for everything. They had to pay for everything. Again, even though Germany didn't start the war, because France really didn't like them, really, you know, wanted revenge on them for something that happened 30 years ago. They really stuck it to them. And in 1921, France demanded that the reparation money be used to fix and repair their country. Okay, so Germany owed 132 billion, yes, billion marks. Now, marks is the name of the German money. Okay, and if you took it into American money, it was the equivalent of $33 billion. So, yeah. Now, um, some of you may kind of be wondering about this, but some of you guys may not. But just in case you are, if you're wondering why is the US dollar is only 33 billion, but the German money is 132 billion, because at that time the US dollar was worth, about like four times, as much as the German money. So for like one US dollar, you would get four German dollars. Okay, so the exchange rate is different. So the US dollar was worth, more. Okay. Um, so Germany started paying back money in 1921. But the following year, they kind of had to stop because they were like, hey, we're having a financial crisis here in Germany. We can't pay you. We got to take care of other things first. And France just loses their mind. France is like, no, 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 no. We don't want to hear that crap. We don't give a care. You're paying us our money one way or the other. So what they did was they invaded the Ruhr Valley. If you look at the map, the Ruhr is right in that little. See where Germany is? It's right next to it. It's right there with the RUHR. Um, because that area is where a lot of factories and mining areas were. So France is like, well, if you won't give us our money, we're going to invade that territory and we're going to get our money from the mines and the factories. Whether you're making things or you're digging things on the ground, that's value. We're going to take that. Okay. Now, some students in the past have asked me, well, why didn't Germany bring their army out? Because according to the treaty, the agreement was Germany could not have an army anymore. Okay. Because after World War One, that's one of the agreements they made that Germany will not have an army. So that's why they didn't stop um, France from invading it. So this is what the German people did in response to France basically invading the Ruhr Valley. Uh, the German factory workers and the miners they went on strike. They said, "Well, you want this stuff so bad, you make the chairs, you make those tables, you dig out that coal, copper, or whatever you're we're mining. You dig it out." Now the thing is, Germany wasn't lying. You know, most people, oh, they were probably lying about the financial crisis. They're probably loaded with money. No, they weren't. They weren't lying. They really were in a big, bad financial crisis. Um, and they got themselves even to more trouble because what they did was they couldn't pay their workers. So the German government did the thing that they thought, oh, this will make solve all the problems, in which it made things worse, which is they printed out more money. Now I know that kind of seems like, well, yeah, it makes sense. Just print out more money, you're good. What's the problem with that? The problem with printing more money is it devalues the value of the dollar, especially back then. Because back then, the money, the value of the money in a country depended on the gold that the country had. It was still on this thing called the gold standard, where you could take money from a country, turn it in, and get gold. Okay. Now, could you get gold for $1? No. It would have to be quite a large amount of money. Okay, because the country is making that has, let's say, $100 billion, and they have like a 1,000 pounds of gold. You know, you would need a good amount of money to get a part of that gold. Okay, but when you print out more money, that makes the value of your dollar worthless, and it would take even more money to get even a little bit of gold. Okay. And this is what caused inflation. Inflation is when the price of things go up, but the amount of money you make is still the same. So it gets harder for you to buy things. Okay. Germany was already in an inflation time when the war ended. And now that the war, completely ended and they're already in a financial mess, they printed out more money. They made themselves get into a bigger hole. So, just to give you an example, here's what I just imagine this. In 1914, one US dollar equaled 4.2 marks, meaning for one US dollar, you would get $4.20 of the German money. Okay, that's just for $1. 9 years later, November 1st, 1923, one US dollar equaled 130 billion marks. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, oh man, if I had a US dollar back then, I would go to Germany and I would buy all kinds of things. No, you couldn't because again, you could, let's say you wanted to get a chair, just a simple chair. The price wouldn't be 100 marks. It would be like 300,000 marks, you know, 1,000,000 marks. It was ridiculous. And as you see in this picture right here, kids are playing with that. That's real money. Kids are playing with it because it's worthless. And just to show you how bad it got, in that same month, now I told you November 1st, it was 130 billion marks for one US dollar. At the end of that month, that same year, one US dollar was worth 4.2 trillion marks. Their money was worthless, absolutely worthless. Like I said, kids would play with it. People would burn it because hey, I can use this money to keep the stove firing, keep the house warmer. This money is worthless. People would use it as napkins. Again, it was just like paper. It had no value. Now the thing is, France is basically telling Germany, "Hey, don't pay us that money because we don't want your money unless it's worth something." So think of it like this: if someone owed you money, let's say they owed you $100, and they just hand you a bunch of like papers and napkins and things like that, they just here you go. You'd be looking like, no, no, where's my money? And they'd be like, well, that is my money. You'd be dropping it on the floor saying, no, 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 give me something real. That's what basically France is telling Germany. Give us something real. Give us something that's worth something because that German dollar was worthless. And Germany's like, do you think we want this money? We don't want worthless money. But what can we do? There's nothing to get out of this. They dug themselves in such a big hole that they can't get out of it. So in August 1924, a new reparations plan was created, which was known as the Dawes Plan. Okay. Now, the reason it got its name is because the chairman of the commission, the group of people who were trying to help solve Germany's problem, that was his name, and he was an American banker. And he said, "Okay, I got this plan, guys. Check this out. The U.S. will loan $200 million to Germany. Okay, so when they lend them that money, this money is going to be used to help build up their economy, and then that's going to make the dollar, the mark, worth more. You know, so instead of it being basically worthless, now the dollar has some value to it. And what Germany will then do is once their money is gaining value, then they will pay back some reparations to France because now that money has some value to it. And then what France and Europe is going to do is that they're going to pay back some loans to the U.S. and the U.S. will be able to, you know, sell their stuff to Europe, especially France and Germany. And then so those countries are going to be buying U.S. products. The U.S. will be making money not only from the war loans, but also they're buying stuff from U.S. and excuse me, and the U.S. gets to invest in Europe. So the U.S. is getting the better deal out of it, but at the same time, France is getting out of their bubble, so they're getting back on their feet, and France is getting the money they want from Germany. So basically, everyone's kind of happy. And this was a nice little thing going on in Europe, but it only lasted from 1924 to 1929 because something happens in 1929 that's going to cause a change around the world. All right, so to find out that change, you have to come to class another 2 weeks after the grading period ends. So, so here's my question to you for the end of this lesson. Do you think Germany has more of an obligation to repay their debts first or to take care of their people? So Germany has money now. You know, should they be paying off their debts first or should they help take care of their people? What do you think? What is their obligation to? So think about it, write your response. Okay. Once you're finished with this question, you're done with this lesson. Okay. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Okay. So, guys, next week is the end of the grading period. So, any work you haven't finished or you didn't get yet, be sure you get that done. Okay. Because again, the end of the year is coming soon and it's going to come by fast. Okay, so please make sure you get all your work done. Okay, so you guys take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.